Hi everyone, I'm Larry Rawson from ESPN, and I've had the pleasure of being on the board for many years of the NSAF. We're delighted you're on the website and watching this, and we are privileged to have some outstanding people here at the USA Track and Field Convention, 50th reunion of the 1968 US Olympic team that was a legendary team in track and field history. And the gentleman that's with me right now has some wonderful stories to tell. There was even a word added to the English language because of his performance in 1968 at the Olympics themselves, and that word is Beamonesque, and it signifies something that is out of this world. And Bob Beamon did that, and to this day, 50 years later, his long jump at the Mexico City Olympic Games in 1968 is the second longest legal jump in history. Think of how sports records fall every couple of years and what's occurred now. And it's great to get reacquainted, and thank you for taking time to join us here and kind of leave a little legacy here for what you did.
Well, I think, you know, I'm really grateful that it's been around a long time, and particularly since that is still the Olympic record, the oldest Olympic record in the history of the Olympic Games. So I'm glad that an American can bring that honor home to the United States.
You were terrific, and you came out of New York City, and you had a lot of ability, and you went to UTEP, University of Texas at El Paso, and you kept improving and improving. And take us down to the Olympics. You qualified in a very cutthroat competition where there was so much talent. And the triple jump, long jump, and the sprinters were beyond belief. I think as deep a field of sprinters as we've ever had from those Olympic days forward. No other Olympics has had such talent that we had then. And you survived all of that, and then you wind up in Mexico City, and the conditions were ideal, and you got on the runway, and maybe you could take us through what the competition was like leading up to your great jump.
Well, the most interesting thing that happened was I found myself in the preliminaries fouling twice in
Wow.
long jump. And so
Out of 3 attempts.
out of 3 attempts to make it to the next day in competition. And my teammate, and I love him so dearly, came up to me and said, "Bob, this is what I want you to do. I just want you to
And
do
who
it."
was this?
This is Ralph Boston, who actually was my hero back in high school when I met him and came in to do a motivational program. I'm now on the Olympic team with Ralph Boston.
And we should tell everybody, an Olympic gold, silver, and bronze medalist
Absolutely.
in the long jump and former world record holder.
Absolutely. And so I found myself moving my distance, my measurements two feet back. And I'll be darned, you know, I jumped behind the board and I made it to the finals for the next day. And so taking you to that great day, October 18th, I was standing up, you know, right at the head of the runway. I think my run-up was like 130 feet to the board. And so, for some reason, I was just so peaceful in my mind. And I was very confident in doing something very special. And I only thought that if I could just jump 27.2 or 27.3, 27.4, I would be very satisfied, and hopefully I can bring home a gold medal.
Now, were you confident because of your training coming in? What gave you the confidence at that moment to nail it?
Because I trained with some of the greatest athletes of all times. My training was done with Tommy Smith, John Carlos, Ronnie Ray Smith, and these guys had technique that was unbelievable, something that I had never experienced as a runner. However, if I had gone to North Carolina Central, where they had great athletes like Norman Tate, Edwin Roberts, these guys, Dr. Walker would make you not only run, you know, jump, but he would also make you run too. But I missed out on that particular area of development. And when I got to Mexico City, I had the opportunity to work with the great ones. And so when I got on the runway, I was so darn fast, I was like, you know, where's the speed coming from? So I was I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it right, but Ralph got me right, and I said, Ralph, man, without you, man, I wouldn't be sitting here today, man, talking about long jumping. But also, on that day, I had this very strange feeling of I will not be denied what I had believed in and been motivated to do. And so it was this day that I took off down the runway. And you know, I could hear my heart beating, but I couldn't hear the people. And so when I took off, I was way up over 6 feet in the air. And so I said, you know, I'm up here in the air, and I started looking at my watch.
I think you've used this line before. That's a good line.
But anyway, I thought.
That's a Norm Tate line.
Yeah. So I said, well, when I landed, the first thing I did, I looked back to see if it was a red flag or a white flag, and it was a white flag. And I said, well, you know, I'll come back on my second jump and really lay it out there, because I really just wanted to just go out and just get something legal. And so I noticed, you know, that the officials were kind of standing around with the electronic device, and they were like on the scope with the scope, and they were like telling the head judge, I don't see anything on the scope. And so, you know, I still had no, I said, well, maybe I probably jumped 27.5 or something like that. And so they had to go get a manual tape.
Because they couldn't.
And I said they had to go all the way back to the United States to Ace Hardware.
You mean it took that long?
And you know, till today, Ron Freeman and them, they were getting ready to run the 400, and they held the 400 up because of the jump.
Wow.
And so, you know, all of this
Back
crazy
and forth,
stuff was
yeah.
going around the long jump pit, and I'm like, And so the interesting thing was that Ralph Boston, he kept looking, and then when they got the tape and they measured 8.9 meters, and so they flashed it up on the board, so I thought it was, you know, Al Order, somebody throwing the discus or something, you know. I said, what the heck, you know, what is, you know, 8.9 meters, because I didn't think it was.
What does it exactly mean in feet and inches, right?
Yeah, and so when I walked over to Ralph, Ralph said, Bob, you jumped 29 feet. You're over 29 feet, you know. I said, and I was walking with him, and all of a sudden I'm on the floor.
When it registered with you and hit you?
Yeah, I collapsed, you know. I was like, you know.
I remember the picture of you holding onto your face.
And so I kept feeling myself like, you know, maybe this is a dream or something. Maybe I'm gonna wake up, you know. I said, hey Bob, this was a nice dream, you know. But it was truly, I was just floored. I didn't think it was real. And the only time that I thought it was real when I got up on the stand to get the award of being the gold medal winner, but also being the world record holder. And you know, when I made the jump, I said, well, I know that Ralph Boston and Charlie Mays, they're gonna come back and get me on the next jump, you know. So that's why I'm so glad that Norman Tate wasn't in there with me, you know. He would have got me, boy, you know. But anyway.
We should tell the audience Norm Tate was on the Olympic team, but he was competing in the triple jump, and you, Bob Beamon, had never lost, had never beaten Norm Tate, and were worried about this guy's ability and great jumps.
Well, I think also that one of the main reasons why we didn't compete, because he was getting ready, I think, if not, I think he was probably just graduating from NCC, North Carolina Central. And so I missed competing with him in the CIAA competitions. And I was so glad that I didn't have to jump against him, but he's my idol, because I always looked at, you know, Norm as being one of the great ones with Ralph Boston. So I was so glad that we did did see each other in the trials, and I was like, what is Norman doing in the triple jump? But I said, you know what, that's fine with me.
You know, we should tell our audience that's watching this one important point. The world record going into those Olympic Games was 27 feet plus. No one had ever touched on 28 feet or longer in history. So when Bob winds up in this fabulous jump, he stepped over 27 feet and a half inches, kept going out over 28 feet and landed 29 feet away. No one had ever done anything like that in history. It was such a remarkable improvement. And in the sports world, that made everybody aghast at what he had achieved. Tell me something, there's always an iconic video that shows you kneeling down in the pit when it registered, and you put your hands in your face. You remember that?
Yes.
What were you thinking at that moment?
Well, as I had mentioned, I said, this has to be a dream. That, you know, this is something that I visualized as in my dream, that I would be a winner in the long jump. And I kept, as I said, I kept feeling myself to see if this is really a real life situation. And it was amazing. I never would have thought that I would jump anywhere close to that. And so, you know, as I said, when I jumped and jumped to 29 feet, I said, well, I know that Ralph Boston and Charlie Bays and these guys, they're going to jump past me, but I got to be ready to make my next jump, you know. So I never thought that I would come out of there that far ahead of everybody.
You know, to put in perspective what was achieved that day in Mexico City, and has become legendary ever since, for all of you watching that don't know the long jump, and let me put it in another context for you. The pitcher's mound to home plate in baseball, when you watch a baseball game, is 60 feet, 6 inches. This man next to me jumped almost half that distance and did it in one step. And Bob Beamon, we appreciate you coming on and taking the time, and many high school kids hopefully are inspired by what you achieved and your efforts on behalf of the sports sense.
Well, thank you, Larry, but I think it's very important to give something special back to youngsters, because believe me, I come a long ways, man, to really get to the point where I had to believe in myself in some kind of way, and the sport of track and field really saved my life.
You've inspired so many. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.